Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. GMT, every day of the week, where we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and the Moonbirds market. Big discussion to take place today. We've got big questions and hopefully some big answers too. But before we get there, I'm your host, B-Check. I'm joined by my legendary co-host, Legendary, and we've got Sammy up on stage live with us on X, on YouTube too. Cannot wait to get into a bigger discussion in just a moment. But just before we get there, a reminder, friends, nothing that we say here is financial advice. This modern market is exceptionally risky. We do not know anything for sure, so please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, how are you doing this Thursday, the 15th of September?
Did you just say of September?
I actually did
You,
say that, didn't I?
you're at the end of the bull market already. That's
What is going
unfortunate.
on?
I was just
I
enjoying February.
I looked into the right corner of my screen. I saw Thursday, the 15th of February, and I said September.
Yeah,
What does
time's
that mean?
flying. It's
What's
been a wonderful year. We're getting towards the end of the year. ETH has finally reached 8K. I'm curious to see if it can hit 10K in the end of year rally. But what can I say? It's been a fantastic run. It's been a pleasure to do 2024.
Sammy? Sammy, Thursday, 15th of September. What are the headlines? If this is what we're doing, I think it's September for some reason.
Technically, you and I are now 35, so we are now in that boomer category. So we're no longer learning stuff.
Am I 35? I would be. Yes,
Yeah.
I would be 35 if it were true that when Thursday, the 15th of September, so we're no longer able to participate in the crypto economy. The show is over, and we have to go back to a normal corporate job potentially. Legendary. What are the headlines? Thursday, the 15th of September. Are we no longer pre-rich?
We are post-rich. We will
Does
have
that
the
mean we're
philosophical
actually not rich
question.
because we've done something terrible with our money?
Exactly. We will have to tackle the philosophical question when we stopped being rich and started being post-rich, and how that impacts our mental health. But all jokes aside, I'm doing quite well. It seems that these days it's 1 day 1K for BTC.
Yeah.
I had to share this article from November 2022 by the European Central Bank. Couldn't resist that temptation. Back then, they published an article called Bitcoin's Last Stand and saying it basically Bitcoin is on its road to irrelevance. That post actually marked the absolute bottom for BTC at 17K. And ever since, it has been going up. So basically, since the European Central Bank published that article, the price has more than tripled.
Yeah, that's so funny. I saw that chart where, the European Central Bank literally bottom ticked the whole thing. So that's always nice to know. Always nice to know what those markers are. I saw an interesting chart in the opposite direction, which is someone had tweeted saying, "You will not know when the top will be, but there will be signs." And this is not God-given fact, but this is just what was illustrated on this chart. Every single top of the previous cycles, there's like a little tweet of an announcement from Coinbase saying Coinbase is the #1 downloaded app in the App Store every single time. So
that makes actually sense. That's probably not a bad indicator. But I
yeah,
think there's one thing that Jack might be happy about. I will transition my strategy for generational wealth from counter trading Jack to counter trading the European Central Bank.
that's pretty good. I mean, I heard Jack was selling NFTs the other day, which is pretty outrageous, assuming that there would be someone else as a liquidity source, given that he's usually the main liquidity source for NFT collections. Jack, welcome to the stage, my friend. Your hand is raised. What are your thoughts here?
Well, being that it's now September, and fortunately, me and Legendary are still under 35. What I have come to discover is that we still have no idea why Moonbirds is ripping, but we do now know it's reached all new time highs on pure speculation of the fact that it's going to be acquired. That has now been lasting for about 7 months.
Okay, so yeah, sorry, go on.
So aside from that, I still haven't sold any of the NFTs that I listed, even though they've been on a giga run, because I keep listing them higher, because that's my mode, is just to always list them 10% higher than the floor every single time the floor raises.
Sure.
Still haven't figured that one out. So still continuing to be exit liquidity, even though it's September. And I was never pre-rich. I am always just poor, modern, future, forever, exit liquidity.
That's good. Just lean into the identity. You can really build a brand around that. I think that's what people want. That's what people expect from you now. And I think if you were to do much better, Jack, you'd just be letting people down. So, Captain, welcome to the stage, my friend. Great to have you with us up top today. What are your thoughts on this?
GM. I missed the opening there, but I believe talking Moonbirds. Is that right?
Yeah, we're about to get into it. If you have some thoughts.
I actually have a hot take. And now I say this, it is kind of speculation. I'm not one to start rumors, especially on someone else's stage. I'll hold those for my own stage. But
we definitely want you to do that right now.
Well, please help me unpack this, because I know some of you are much bigger brains than I with the data. We might need NFT stats to jump in and do some blockchain sleuthing here. But I've not looked into it, but I'm just connecting some dots. And it appears to me that it's in range. This might be the new meta of farming. What I mean by that is incorporating longs and shorts into their blur farming. It hit me that I saw the pump yesterday, and it vividly remembered 2 weeks ago, Tyler Did It put out a tweet that talking about the open interest, and there was 100% long on Moonbirds. So to me, is that not like potentially an infinite money glitch? You open, you're a whale, you open up a long, you buy up the floor, you close the long, you profit, then you sell into bid, you open up a short, then you sell into bids, and then you close the short. Is that, am I, and I hate to say this because I should have looked into data, but that was the first thing I saw, was like, wow, is this just that 100% long open interest playing out? And this is a farmer that's printing, or am I way off?
Do you know what? I really, really like that idea and that way of thinking. I was thinking about this the other day as well. Let's do this, Captain. Legendary Sammy, I know if you could like have a look into that. Obviously, this is on Wasabi, just in the background, to see if you can find anything on that, if we can get a few more stats, and then we'll get to it in a moment. We'll take some time to do the snapshot read, get through the headlines and the price action, and then we'll come back to that very point. There's a few funny wrong answers as well to a tweet that I shared earlier, but we do want to try to get to the bottom of it, because it's just too random, as you say, Captain. So let's get into that in just a moment. But first, let's do the headlines for today, which will start like this. As always, they're pinned up top. They are in the snapshot, which is above. If you do find it brings you some value today, please do give it a like. So let's get into it. Starting with the price action on crypto. We've got Bitcoin up another percent, as Legendary said, every day, another K on Bitcoin at 52.2. ETH up, I think it went past 2.8K for a little bit, just ticked down. Solana at 116, Ape at 1.6. In terms of the headlines, we've got Starknet investors unlocking 13% of the token supply in only 2 months because of a secret TGE event. This is one of the crazy things. Apparently, this has been done before as well. This is new to me in crypto. But the way that they do this, the details were provided by Loopify. Basically, Starknet essentially launched their token 2 years ago on chain, but it was impossible to trade. So they count that as the TGE. And now that means 2 months after the launch, 13% of the token supply will unlock, because technically the 2 years of the cliff for the investors had now passed. So pretty outrageous situation there. Do want to touch on that at some point here, Legendary and Sammy's thoughts. Some more thoughts from Zeneca on it was that the Stark airdrop is going to be such an interesting case study. They worship devs and said F you to degens. Crypto is 98% degens and 2% devs. We will see how well it works over the long run. I saw some rumors as well. This is just something from the timeline, that they deleted their Telegram. I don't think people have responded too well to this whole dynamic, but let's get some confirmation on that too. And finally, next two headlines: NFT lending protocol Arcade announces airdrop for favorite NFT collections on ETH, BTC, and Sol. That's pretty cool to see. Cyrus shared the details of the collections. They were Pudgies, Lil Pudgies, Seals, Node Monkeys, Puppets, R6, Mad Lads, or Tensorians. It's pretty eclectic collection across different blockchains. That was pretty cool to see. And finally, this is what we're going to get to in a moment. We're doing a little bit of digging if we can find some information. Moonbirds ripped 45% to 1.ETH floor. And I literally had to write in the snapshot, I have not been able to figure out why. Send help. So that is what the show is for today. If you are able to provide any light on that, please request, put something down in the comments. We want to hear from you. In terms of the floor prices, we've got CryptoPunks at 57 ETH, Bored Apes at 23.3, Mutants at 4.2, DGods at 2.9, Captains at 4.3, Azukis at 6.5, Penguins at 20.5, Mad Lads up 7% at 173 Sol, and Noun's winning bid was at 7.1 ETH. Some notable sales: CryptoPunk bandana for 60 ETH, really cool ringers, Dimitri Cherniak selling for 21 ETH, that's $58,000, and a very cool doodle balloon. I've never seen this trait before, a doodle balloon. Can see some cool doodles in the audience with us today. We've got Charles, we've got Austin as well, who I had the pleasure of speaking with yesterday. Nice to see doodles crushing it at the moment. Legendary, that is the price action. Those are the headlines. Before we get into the little investigation on Moonbirds and what we think there, what is there any numbers standing out to you at the moment?
I think my answer is going to be the same as yesterday. Again, a doodle scale. I do like the doodle balloon. It just is nice to see that sustained momentum. And I know I'm repeating myself because I said exactly the same thing yesterday.
Very fair enough. I've actually never seen this balloon one before. It looks very cool. I just love how it's just something that happens in the NFT market all the time, right? Where something can be under the radar, not under the radar, right? Because Doodles is a very, very prominent collection, but they were certainly unloved for a period of time. The sentiment changed for a period of time. And suddenly when they explode back, everyone almost like there's this huge momentum behind it and everyone is jumping on the bandwagon at the same time. It's just such a momentum asset, and good to see them being able to ride that asset, ride the wave as they are looking forward to some cool stuff coming up. Sammy, any points to note from you in terms of the numbers? We see Mad Lads 20% against a bunch of other NFTs which are fairly still. Any thoughts there?
I'm just getting severe FOMO from Doodles, to be honest. Exactly the same as Legendary. I think I've always liked it. I've just never bit the bullet and just bought one. And I think that 1 ETH a while ago is probably past. So, but yeah, just on the Moonbird stuff, I know I had a look through and they've actually got the Talon's marketplace is actually on ZK Sync. So there could be some affiliation with farming ZK Sync airdrop with Moonbirds. I don't know if there's some secret agreement that's happened behind the scenes with KRO and ZK Sync, but there might be something to do with that as well. Okay. I'm just looking to Wasabi now, but
sure. Okay, interesting. Right, let's just set the scene then. Let's get into this Moonbirds discussion in a moment. Let's set the scene. And I don't know if Legendary or Sammy, if you'd be able to speak to how Wasabi works potentially, if you're able to do that as part of that discussion in a moment, that would be helpful to try to explain what Captain was suggesting. But I'll set the scene first for what's happened. So in the last 24 hours, Moonbirds has ripped up like almost 50% to a 1.8 ETH floor and pretty outrageous price action. I think it was down at 1.2 yesterday. February the 13th. Yeah, 1.2-ish yesterday. So pretty aggressive price action. And this is one of the first times on the timeline. And bear in mind, I have a platform now where people know I write the news. People are willing to DM me news if I ask for it. If I put out a question, someone might usually give me an answer. It's been very difficult to get a straight answer for what this could be or anything that seems viable. So I'm just going to read all the comments from underneath my tweet earlier, whether they are correct, funny or not. And then we'll kind of set up some potential other responses. Sender, good friend of mine, said the Harvard boys returned to crypto yesterday after a 2-year absence. I did say wrong answers only on this tweet, so that's one potential option. Legendary pumped his bags without having an actual bag. Legendary, I think you actually bottom sold the Moonbirds, which so Colano cannot be right there. Oxy says B check. Of course, we know why they were bought by Disney. Sanic says squiggle airdrop for all holders. On YouTube, we have this idea where there are 2 ideas going around. This is from, I can't see this person's username, but a Moonbird holder. So let's see. There are two ideas going around. Moonbird's pumped because of a promised announcement in February, or that Kevin Rose is actually selling the project to someone. And the third one that I would add into the mix for discussion that I saw, and when I say that I saw this, remember, this is like purely conjecture, just things that people are talking about. We're not able to verify this type of stuff in the heat of the moment. The third thing is actually what you just said, Sammy. I saw someone tweeting, maybe it was a reply to me or somewhere else, that potential ZK Sync allocation, but like really nothing to hang my hat on there. Like really, really wild conjecture in essence. Legendary, want to come to you first for any thoughts on the things that we've put out there, and then maybe we'll start to speak to the thing that Captain suggested, which is this potential of people opening longs on Wasabi and then going to the market to fulfill whatever they intended to do. Like, is that even possible? What do you think about that?
The thing is, I got more than a dozen DMs asking me to share what is going on with Moonbirds, because people think I have inside knowledge on that, because the day before the pump, I was bored and I happened to do one of my posts that I didn't in a while, which was, what would you rather buy at 1.1
You like
ETH,
that one?
Weebit or Moonbird?
You do like that one.
That was apparently the perfect timing, but I swear I don't have any inside information of what's going on with the burps, having sold my burp quite a while ago. So I think there was an announcement that there's going to be an announcement in February. I think I remember reading that when I still was in the Discord earlier this year. I tried to check it, but obviously I don't have access any longer to the Proof Discord, so I can't speak to that. But even if that was the case, I would argue, given that aggressive movement on a collection that has been doing nothing other than going down for the last couple of months, that some people who might be closer to what's going on inside the Proof ecosystem might have had a bit of privileged knowledge, let's call it like that, and might have acted on that. Obviously, it's also purely speculation, but that would be my guess if I had to make any.
Interesting. Okay, so to me, based on what we're saying, there seems to be two potential ideas here, which I think is worth exploring. One is the usual one. One is just the usual insider knowledge of something that is coming, some type of bullish news, and therefore a bunch of people have acted. Although it would be helpful. This is something we could check how much of this action was driven by one wallet, two wallets, three wallets. Maybe Sammy, that would be something helpful to take a look at as well. Like how much of this action overnight has been driven by one or two wallets, or is it across the board? That might be an indicator potentially here. So you've got the usual option, which is insider knowledge, bunch of people buy in as a consequence of that. This alternative one is what Captain shared, which is about Wasabi allowing longing and shorting. And one day last week, like it was 100% open longs for Pudgies as well, actually. But as Captain Riley said, one day there was also 100% long Moonbirds. So is there a way that people could be manipulating the data? Sorry, not manipulating the data, but manipulating the price in order to fulfill what they would like to happen to the price based on bets that they're making. So I've got this to share, Legendary. Maybe you'll be able to speak to that, and then would love to come to Sammy on this in a second. This is the tweet that Captain was referencing. This is on video on YouTube and X if you want to like be able to see it, but I'll just read it out and maybe try to describe what's happening for people just listening in. So Tyler shared, Wasabi just published their perps open interest data, and the results are pretty eye-opening. A few immediate takeaways. The market is nearly 100% long on Azuki and Moonbirds. So this is dated January the 31st, so 2 weeks ago. The Pudgy long short ratio has fallen to 62 to 38%, and by far the most volume. DGOT is 100% short. So I just think this is an awesome data point. Like that's the first thing I'd want to say about this. Like what an interesting thing to know about the market of like where people are placing their bets for what's going to happen. So open interest by size, you can see here on the graph. Wow. So Pudgy Penguins is significantly higher than everything else with more than 60 ETH of open interest. The next highest was Moonbirds, interestingly, just under 20 ETH of open interest. And that's when it was 100% long. This is going to be really interesting because I know Wasabi is doing a lot of volume, but at the same time, I don't think it's loads and loads of users necessarily yet. So, like, when someone's 100%, we'd want to think about how many people are even affecting that at the moment. So, and just another interesting graph, we've got open interest by percentage. And what we can see there is, I think people were 100% long Doodles as well then at one point in time, almost 100% long on Azukis, almost 100% long on Moonbirds, and yeah, 100% short on DGods. I just think my key conclusion from this, before I come back to you, Legendary, then we'll come to you, Sammy, for your thoughts on this, is what an interesting data point for us to incorporate into our analysis, and definitely something to keep an eye on. Legendary first, then. Are you able to speak to like what this all means for Touch, to try to make sense of it for people? What are your thoughts here?
So first of all, I am familiar with Wasabi. I don't know the volume. I don't know exactly how the counterparty works on that, so I can't speak to the protocol specifically.
Sure.
But generally, talking about perp markets, obviously, Wasabi is not the only perp market. There's a bunch of them being built. There's a couple of them who are live. But the thing is always that you need a counterparty. If you want to short the Azuki collection, for example, you actually need someone who wants to be on the other side of your deal. So if Azuki do increase in floor price and you basically lose your bet on shorting them, someone else has to make a profit on that. So that's like the essentials of how perps work. Again, with Wasabi, I can't speak to the volume. I did have a look on the platform just right now. The funding rates seem to be quite okay. Funding rate is basically the hourly rate that you have to pay to maintain your long or short bet, that you can obviously also can do in a leveraged fashion, up to 5x leverage, what I could see on Wasabi. So, and that's something I've been saying for quite a while, that with perp markets becoming more and more prevalent in Web3, if they get enough volume, there's also ways to game and manipulate this market to profit, basically by shorting a collection and then being able to dump into bids and move the floor price down. If there's enough interest on the other side, also going the other way, longing a collection and just making sure that then you see an increase in floor price. But I cannot confidently say that this is what happened with Moonbirds via Wasabi, because I just don't have the insights into the volumes on the platform.
But I think I definitely appreciate that. But do you think we're in a position to say that is like one of the potential things that could happen? Like, are we able to say that maybe? I think that's kind of what you're suggesting, that it does open that avenue up potentially.
Yeah, that is something that potentially could happen, and there's something that definitely will happen with other collections once there's enough volume.
Very interesting. Great call out, Captain, for bringing that up. I don't know if you have any kind of reflections. We're going to keep talking about it for a moment, and then we're going to talk about some other stuff to do with Moonbirds and how they might have things cooking, what else might be expected. I know Austin will have something to say that from Doodles, as someone who's been through like a transition of leader as well, and how that kind of impacts the collection. And Jack's got his hand raised as well. But any reflections there, Captain, first?
No, I appreciate you looking into it. I'm going to also do some deeper diving, and I tell you what, if it's not some sort of farming and this was all just the floor legitimately getting bought up by a bunch of different users, I want to find who opened up the 100% open interest in Moonbirds and just start copy trading them. Like they're the trader I want to follow this bull market. If whoever took out that that long on Moonbirds 2 weeks ago and just foresaw this coming, like, yeah, that's who I want to copy trade.
That's a nice way to think about it, for sure. Thanks for bringing that across our radar. I mean, Wasabi is on my radar anyway. I provide liquidity there, but just to connect the dots, I think, is actually quite a helpful thing to do. Sammy, we said we were going to check in with you. Did you manage to take a look at any of those numbers? What are your thoughts at this point?
Yeah, I've just dropped the link into the latest dashboard. So if you wanted to open it up for the video, and I can talk through, but
sure.
It's switched around a little bit. So if this is a key driver, now if you head towards the bottom of that particular dashboard, there's an open interest by size, and you've got Pandora. the Pandora NFTs, which have kind of 150 ETH or over 150 ETH in open interest. You compare that to what Moonbirds is at, which is like 66 ETH. And then you've got a long on Pudgies as well. So I think those three collections, if that is the case, you could probably see that pumping a bit more. I think if you look at the open interest by percentage, you've got BAYC, there's quite a big short percentage compared to longs.
Definitely.
But broadly across the rest of them, it's pretty much longs across the board, apart from DGODs as well, which is short 68%. So I guess, yeah, if that is a key driver, I guess we'll see some probably more Pudgy price action going up. You might see Pandora's continue to climb. And you probably see BAYC continue to fall. So you could see that flipping between Pudgy and so it's quite interesting. I think in terms of number of traders, there's about 30 or 40 traders driving this on Wasabi at the moment daily. I think cumulatively, so if you scroll up to daily active traders, you've got a cumulative number of 344. So that's the total number of traders that have used the protocol. So it's not even that many. But they probably do have a reasonable amount of clout. There's definitely points involved as well. So
for sure.
Whether it is just farming, but yeah, it could be a contributory factor. I just think it would be hard for me to see that this would be the key driving factor, because it doesn't seem to be a significant amount. 150 ETH open interest on Pandora doesn't seem quite like a huge amount when you've got, I don't know what the prices are now, but they're around about like 30 grand at one point per NFT. So yeah.
That's fascinating. Thanks so much for looking into that, Sammy. Maybe share that in the comments to the show as well, if you can. Or maybe you're not with your phone, so it doesn't matter. But I'll try to do it in a second, actually. Yeah, very, very interesting.
Don't worry, I can do it.
Thanks. The key thing I thought, and Legendary mentioned this earlier, and this is more for investigation. Just I'm kind of thinking out loud. Is everyone thought that once you open this type of thing up with these types of perps, that everyone would short NFTs, right? That's what every single person thought that people would do. That they thought that everyone would short NFTs. That was like the whole point of it. Oh my God, how cool would it be if you could short these NFTs? They're all going to zero. We're all just going to open up shorts. That is not what's happening. Look, fine, maybe we're going to a more bullish market, whatever. I suspect, and this is what I think would need to be worth investigating. I suspect that the incentives are not aligned to short the NFTs because the few people who are participating, and this is kind of going along with Captain's idea, I think will obviously be incentivized to participate in the actual NFT market once they've opened these positions. And it must be easier to be profitable longing the NFTs and then buying up the NFTs rather than shorting them and then buying them up and then dumping them. So like, this is just a working thesis just based on these numbers, because I haven't got my head around why so many people would be so long on actually like a variety of NFTs. Like people are 100% long on Sappy Seals right now as well for, okay, it's not a lot. It's like 11 ETH, but it's just, everyone seems to just be going long everything. Or is this just an example of people being like really degenerate and just, I don't know. What's your key takeaway from some of this data, Legendary? And then we're going to get back to the Moonbird stuff in a moment.
I mean, the finance guy in me is thinking, why not do both, right? You can obviously start longing, propping up the collection once it reached a certain floor price. There's people who will want to take profits. We've seen it with Pudgies. There was a correction once they hit 20 ETH. And once you reach that top and you have built enough of a long position, then you can start build a sell wall and kind of try to create a bit of panic and then short. But probably the nicer thing is to long and profit on the upside. But on the other hand, we've seen farmers on Blur who didn't have any issue with moving the floor price up, listing hundreds into dumping hundreds into bids, listing them. So if we've seen that same behavior to just foster volatility with incentivized points and farming on Blur, why shouldn't we see the same thing on both sides with perps as well? Especially when you can then double dip, because you can obviously profit on the trade, profit on a long short, farm points on Wasabi, and then also farm points on Blur if you have enough liquidity to play it like that.
This is the thing people need to think about. These are like the potential games that people are playing with the asset that you just like really like to hold. Fascinating stuff there. Right. Jack,
I
your
think
hand.
I think just also I think there's, I mean, looking at Wasabi, I don't use it, but they've got options on there as well. So you've got these potential, you could do collars, you could do a number of different trading strategies that in traditional markets they'll do to limit their exposure. So they could open up a huge long, but then I don't know, sell a put or whatever, just to kind of limit their downside exposure. So it's just interesting. I think there's a whole new raft of dynamics that could come in that could change the market. So it's definitely interesting ones to watch.
Yeah, and I specifically saw someone write the other day that the pudgy penguin floor was being manipulated via the blur farmers who are kind of coaxing people in, getting people scared to sell them more at a lower price and then just moving the price higher again. So like if you're able to do that at that level and you've got access to this, I mean, if you wanted to play around with it, that sounds like a pretty powerful tool that is available to you. Jack, your hand is raised. What are your thoughts on this kind of open interest data and how it affects either the Moonbirds floor price or just anything in general? Then want to zoom out and just think about Moonbirds for a second again.
Yeah, I think for me, it's clear at this point that at the very least, people are trying to direct longs or blare bids or whatever you want to call it towards any project with like historical backing, but also like some sort of small momentum. I think for Moonbird specifically, it is that it's going to be acquired. And I'm not sure if it's speculation or some sort of insider knowledge at this point. I would probably just say speculation. But what I did, and everyone can thank me for this because nobody else has been on Threads to my knowledge for at least 6 months now. But I ventured all the way over to Threads, which is probably going to get me kicked off by Elon at this point, to find Kevin Rose because he just does not exist on Twitter anymore, or X. And his podcast that he is launching is all AI based. It's got nothing to do with Moonbirds. I couldn't find a single post on Moonbirds or Proof. I didn't do a huge, extensive look down the thread, but I went 10, 15 posts deep. It's all about his podcast that has now launched. It launched mid-February. And basically it seems he's following the footsteps of Ryan Cotson at this point and is going down AI/new tech, and he has left the Moonbirds world behind. It feels eerily quiet in the Moonbird side. I haven't been paying super close attention to them since Kevin's left to Threads, but it does feel like something is imminent. And we did our Basel at Miami. There was something in the air there as well. Neither Justin or Kevin were at the main event for Proof during our Basel, which is the art NFT it's like the event you need to be at if your NFT project is following art, which Moonbirds and Proof is supposed to be. And one was at a meditative retreat. I can't tell you what the other one was doing, but yeah, I think this is definitely people like taking longs, people speculating in Blair as well, and just looking for that momentum. And they've probably just done the research and feel like it does have an opportunity to go up anyway, and therefore they're just putting size towards that to give it like a double bump. Because why wouldn't you do that? Why would you just manipulate the market? What you're trying to do is manipulate the market, which is much evidence as you possibly can garner, so that hopefully it goes in the direction that you're betting against with your size as well.
Interesting stuff. Interesting thoughts on the trajectory of Proof and the people who could be leading it. We obviously don't know any of those things for sure, but look, it's been one of the rumors that have been going around. Clearly, some of the people in charge there are not ecstatic and not happy and haven't had a good time of it recently. I think that's probably fair to say.
The dude was taking ketamine, B-check. The dude came on and he's been taking ket to deal with the anxiety and stress that has been brought past him. He said that these are his words. Like, he was literally taking ket to get over the anxiety and the dread that Moonbirds has given him.
There you go. Not having a good time of it, for the moment, at least. A couple more takes on this. Maybe moving away from like the kind of open interest, the trading thing, just thoughts on Moonbirds, where it's going from here. Like, I was just on the OpenSea website, and do you remember this video they created? It was so cool. Like, the animation thing, it looked absolutely amazing. Want to just do some quick hands and then move on. Oxy first, then Funky. Oxy, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I actually just tried to put my hand down, but because it was related to the longs. So just super quick, I don't want to repeat what anyone had said previously, but it's an easy and cheap way to get exposure at a time where liquidity is king. As we enter into a bull market like this, people who want liquidity, and these perps and like call options or put options are a cheap way to get exposure without just completely making yourself somewhat illiquid. So that was just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, very fair. We've got another point on that in the news later with the MetaStreet stuff. Very interesting stuff being worked on to kind of increase liquidity across the market on that too. Funky, your hand is raised. Put a bow on this topic for us. What are your thoughts on Moonbirds? Why has the price gone up so damn much?
Purely speculative on my part, but maybe it's just Kevin Rose high on ketamine sweeping the floor and not telling anybody. Anyhow, that was my take.
Love it. Why not? Why not? Okay. Let's get on to the next headline, Legendary. Where do we go from here? We've got the Starknet news. This was a pretty strange one. Do you want to talk? I mean, I'll share this on the screen and read it out for a few people. We were elated yesterday when we thought we had another airdrop, and it seems like everyone's gone very, very sour in the last 24 hours. The Starkware token has a 2-month cliff, after which 13% of the entire token supply is released to investors in the team. And here's some of the details from there. They'd written in the documents to align long-term incentives of the investors and early contributors with the interests of the Starknet community, and following common practice in decentralized ecosystems, all tokens allocated to investors and early contributors will be subject to the following lockup schedule, where percentages are based on the total token supply. So up to 13.1% of the tokens will be dropped on April the 15th of 2024. Now, obviously, this token has just come out, or at least, well, as in there is actually still no claim. We have not claimed any tokens. We've just done an airdrop kind of checker to see if we're eligible, but there are no tokens in anyone's hand. So as people should know, typically in these circumstances, your early investors have to wait for like at least 6 months, potentially even a year. It's called a cliff period, before they're going to start seeing some of their tokens back. And even when they see them, they're not going to get them all in one go. They're going to vest over a period of time. So they come to you over a period of time. And it seems like there's some type of mechanism where they've said that the TGE happened like 2 years ago or something nonsensical. And so the the cliff is over and they're ready to be distributed. Legendary, any thoughts on this? Any thoughts on this message from someone in Telegram? I believe this is one of the founders. We don't owe you anything. No one asked you to do anything. We care about community much more than you think. We are here for the long run. If you don't understand this, go farm useless bullshit projects. There are plenty of those. Any thoughts?
A couple of thoughts. I mean, first of all, it's not the first time we've seen that. It's something that it's now the third or fourth time that I've seen it. We've seen it with Shrapnel. I've seen it with a couple other rounds that I looked at. Basically, the idea is I open up a round, I say vesting cliff is 12 months, for example, and I give you a ticket B. I give you a ticket now. You maybe buy 1K at this round. This is another variation of how I have seen that being done. So you get in now and you have a 12 months cliff. And I know I want to do like TGE, say, in January 2025. And then I go to Sammy. I'm like, look, I'm going to give you the same deal in the same round, but I'm going to go to Sammy in December. And basically, I say that the cliff is not starting when Sammy puts his money in, but when the first person had put their money in that round, which in this case would have been UB. And for Sammy, it means his quote-unquote 12-month cliff is a 2-month cliff because he actually had already vested 10 months before even investing in the token. So this is another variation of how we have seen that being done in the past. It is fundraising. It is very, very creative. And it's definitely something you have to check for when you want to invest in those projects.
Can I ask a question on this?
Yeah.
Like, since when do cliffs start when you put your money in? Like, that's not the point of a cliff, right? The cliff is like the cliff. This is my understanding. I'm relatively new to the industry, but I've been investing a reasonable amount in the last few months. Cliffs start at TGE. So say
mostly, but not always.
Okay, interesting. So do you want to speak to that? I mean, that was just my assumption. That's when they're supposed to start. And the
Yeah,
only
that's the
reason this
standard.
was
That's
able
the
to go
standard
like
thing
this
to do.
is because
Is to
they like
obviously
they deployed the contract, as in, but then they'd like literally deployed the contract somewhere secretly and just made it impossible for anyone to trade. And that deployment of the contract meant the start of the cliff. Like,
yeah, there's three things. Standard thing is you invest in a project, they have a TGE ideally in the future, and once that happens, then the cliff starts, and then you have your 2 months, 1 month, 6 months, whatever it is. Then you have variation 2, which is the Stark slash shrapnel way of things to deploy your token in the past, and you invest in a basically past TGE that has been done like secretly, but it wasn't like the public TGE. And then you have this cliff that has already been running. And then you have the third variation, which is the one which I described, where like the cliff isn't tied to the TGE, but it's tied to the first person who had invested in that round. And I've seen rounds that basically have been ongoing for like 18 months to just have a shorter cliff than you communicate to investors. It's obviously not the transparent thing to do. It's a bit, it's pretty sneaky to do it like that, but it's definitely not something that hasn't been done before.
I mean, this is just, it's awful. Like, I mean, fair enough, people do it. It's the first time I've come across it. I'm a bit newer to it than you are, but what a way to create huge amounts of resentment for you and your investors and your project and your token and everything.
I think
to your
investors quite like it. The only one who's quite frankly pissed is airdrop recipients, because they didn't expect the circulating supply to be doubled after 2 months. As an investor, you would absolutely love that situation, because you get to unlock a bunch of tokens 2 months after the like real TGE, right?
But there hasn't been a like someone needs to buy the token still, right? Like there will be no buy. Like if this gets circulated and people know, there'll be no retail. I don't think.
I don't think so,
Maybe there will
because
be.
if you
Or the
look at
market
it from
makers
like,
just deal with it.
if you look at it from an investor's perspective, you now have people who will get the airdrop. Everyone's pissed in the community. Then not the TG, but like the trading starts to be like more technically correct. Then the trading starts, and as an investor, what you want to do in that situation is basically to prop up the price and like just help with some long volume when the trading actually starts. Then people's airdrops turn out to be worth more. Then the thinking kind of goes, oh, it wasn't that terrible. The price is holding up quite well. And then you have 2 months basically to have like this positive momentum, and
then they're going to come and dump it all.
And then you can dump it all, right?
Okay, I understand how it works now. Interesting stuff. Look, Sammy, what do you think on this? Is Starknet going to be dead as a consequence? What are the real ramifications for pursuing this type of strategy when launching an L2 token?
I'll be honest, I've kind of steered clear of Starknet, and I think after seeing everything on the timeline, it's not a wasted time. So yeah, I mean, I asked you which wallet was it that I should have been using, and then I realized it was Argent. So yeah, my transactions are pretty limited. I do think it is like, it does feel like it's not great for the community. It does feel like they pulled the wool over their eyes, because the average person's just not going to understand what's gone on. It seems like quite a complex process with the TGE. I haven't come across it, but yeah, I've invested in fewer rounds than Legendary has. So I think it's just left a sour taste. Will it do well? It could do. I don't know. It could be, as soon as it opens out the gate, you're going to have traders that probably buy the dip and pump it. I don't know. But ultimately, I guess if it depends on what it's going to be used for in the future, and whether people are actually going to use the network.
Someone shared this graph of, and I don't know how applicable it is at the moment, but Parify, which was an airdrop that people were very excited about, and they drew the comparison, which was that they rewarded investors and whales over everyone too much in a similar way, and the chart was just like wrecked down, like immediately, like immediate down only, never to come back at all. You'd need to do a little bit more research to deduce whether that's an appropriate comparison or not first, but definitely worth thinking about. Look, not to be too moral about it and things like that, but I just think if you do something that just feels so sour, I just think bad things are going to happen. Not moral. It's just more like a karma thing. It doesn't sound like people. It doesn't sound like that type of open deception is going to work out for people, and people should try to be a little bit more upfront if possible. And I think it obviously is possible to do these launches without doing something like that. Like it wasn't necessary to do that. And when everyone else is thinking about their launches, they don't do that. Like I know Legendary mentioned that this is not the first time. Well, exactly. That's the point. Like 9 out of 10 people don't do it. So why is it really like, what's the bull case for doing something like this? Yes, your investors get it first, but every single other person is enraged. So I don't know why that would be the way that you'd want to go. Unless there's any other reflections on that. Legendary, you just came off mute. Then we'll get into the Web3 news, do a quick roundup, and then get into this NFT lending airdrop for different NFT holders.
I think to me the big issue with Starknet is like the sneakiness of it, because it was done on purpose to create a situation that just seems to be different, but in fact is worse for people receiving the airdrop, and it's just benefiting investors, as opposed to, because we had a similar discussion after the Jupe airdrop, and those are the two that I want to kind of connect, because Jupiter, they basically also did the liquidity provision after the airdrop as a way to take out profit. They didn't have investors. But the thing is, they had that publicly announced on the website that this is exactly the way that they will do it. And with them, the line was, guys, that's not cool. You could have communicated that more in a clearer, in a stronger way. And that's a criticism that they have taken. But this Starknet thing, in contrast to Ju, is just purely trying to deceive people in the way that it's structured, which I think is just not a smart move to do.
Great call out. Great call out to bring Jupe into it and kind of contrast the way that they were done. My only one further reflection on that is sometimes you can't please people either way. Jupe did it in a completely kind of transparent way, but no one read the docs anyway and somehow still managed to get offended. But at least in that moment, I think they felt like they got a fair amount in their own pocket. So things to reflect on there in terms of how to structure these launches. Let's get into the Web3 roundup from the snapshot before we hit the final headline of the day. As always, this is in the snapshot, which is pinned up top. Let's get into it, starting with what we mentioned earlier, more liquidity coming to NFTs. MetaStreet announces $25 million raise and launch of Ascend. With the introduction of liquid credit tokens, we aim to bring forth $3.5 billion worth of sustainable new yields from the NFT market that beat staking APRs. I actually deposited a little bit yesterday. I know Legendary did too. You basically get exposure to lending, but instead of having all of your money tied up in that loan now, you get liquid credit tokens, which you can then do things with. So it's pretty interesting stuff, really a lot of innovation there on the NFT lending side. I'm going to look more into that soon. Number 2, CIO of Bitwise Fund announces that their Bitcoin ETF crossed $1 billion of assets under management. Pretty impressive there. More inflows. Keep going towards Bitcoin. Next, ApeCoin DAO vote on ApeChain concludes with Horizon and Arbitrum being the winners. I think that was a pretty ferociously fought fight. Congrats to Horizon and Arbitrum. Next, big account lender, trader, CBB, big pharma shares him and his brother have provided $1.2 billion of loans to NFT holders in the last 9 months. They said we have reached the milestone of 1.2 billion in loans provided to NFT holders since the launch of Blend by Blur 9 months ago. We are just 2 brothers. You don't need to be institutional or have people working for you to get things done. Pretty outrageous that 2 people have been able to do that. Pretty impressive. And I love that message at the end. I think that's in the spirit of crypto. Whether you agree with what they do or whether you don't, like in the spirit of crypto, just get after it and you could be that person doing $1 billion of loans on Blend in a few years. Next, Quantum Cats artist Far releases flares on Bitcoin. They released, I think the Dutch auction settled at 0.015 Bitcoin and the collection ran up to 0.02. Overworld, the hyped Web3 game, announced a $10 million seed round. And finally, Floor Reforms by Harto mints for $5 on Bitcoin and reached a $250 floor. Legendary. That is the rest of the news from around the space. Let's hit the final headline on the NFT lending protocol Arcade announcing the airdrop for favorite NFT collections. The collections included are these. Just finding the exact tweet. We've got, here we go, the collection list. What are your thoughts on this collection list? We've got Pudgy Penguins, Lil Pudgies, Sappy Seals, Bitcoin Puppets, Node Monkeys, Rune Coins, Mad Lads, and Tensorians. Legendary, we've been speaking a lot about the trend of protocols now targeting NFT communities. Why? Because they are the most active, the most vocal online. They serve as a great marketing tool. In addition to the financial stimulus you're giving people, they will then go and tweet about it online. So people have definitely clocked onto that aspect. What do you think about the selection of collections here? And then I might actually touch on what Arcade is as well, in case people have literally no idea.
I think it's a pretty smart selection if you look at the fact that you have ETH, Solana, and Ordinals included in it. So you're basically targeting 3 different user bases, 3 different
Has that been done before? Are you aware of one where they've done all 3 before?
No, I don't think so. I mean, yes, Dimension at least did Pudgies and Madlets, so they did 2. I don't think there was an ordinal component involved with it, but I also might be completely wrong with that. But I do like the strategic thinking of that. I also like the way how they structure this airdrop, because it doesn't seem to be as straightforward as just claim for each of the collections.
Do you want to
the
speak to
announcement
that?
says it is the Clash of Claims, a PvP airdrop where holders of selected collections enter for a chance to win 3% of the total supply of Arcade's token. Next week, the first 4,000 wallets will have the ability to claim 750 Arcade each until the total allocation of 3 million Arcade is fully distributed. So I don't know exactly how the PvP component will play out, or if it's also going to be gamified, or if it's just purely a game of chance. But I do like that competitive approach, because if it's something where you need to, what I could imagine, again, this is me speculating, but just thinking with my marketing brain on, you could make it a race who interacts more with their content, shares more content, etc., etc. So you basically rally 8 communities around you, and you give them a portal-like sharing, posting, hashtagging challenge, and all of them do free marketing for you, and the winner takes the biggest piece of the airdrop cake, and also the others will be rewarded. I don't know if this is the case, but that's a way how it could be done, and I think it's, again, pretty smart from a marketing perspective.
Very interesting. I mean, I think that's actually a great idea, what you just suggested, like literally targeting select community. Because at the moment, a lot of these campaigns, like Portal Coins, just like, look, all of you, whoever you are, enter into this farming thing, and you will potentially be rewarded. What this is potentially saying, we need to know the details, or what you suggested at least, is forget all of you. We're not interested in all of you. We know that there are certain sets of people that are actually influential, actually useful, actually, not literally suggesting that other people are not useful, but we've targeted core people that we know to be more vocal and impactful on the timeline. Now we want you specifically to go against each other and try to make things happen for us and compete for this. And just to point on some of the numbers here, 3% of the total supply is a lot. Like, that's a lot to go either between or all to like 8 collections. That's fair, right, Legendary? That's a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot.
Interesting. Just a few more details. I want to go to Sammy for his thoughts here as well. But a few more details from the tweet is next week, the first 4,000 wallets will have the ability to claim 750 ARC each until the total allocation of 3 million ARC is fully distributed. Okay, that doesn't sound like there's a competition. That just sounds like you might need to do it before other people. Let's see if there's any more details. They say all ARC claims next week will occur on ETH mainnet, and ETH address must be registered if you hold any of the Sol and BTC Select collections to be eligible for the claim. Okay, so so if you do have any of those collections, don't just assume it's going to drop in your wallet. Go to the official tweet. As always, you can get to it from the snapshot, because I've included the Arcade handle up there. I think I included it, or I've included Cyrus's, and you can get to Arcade from there. And make sure you actually do the registration, because I guess that's going to be an important part of making sure to ensure your eligibility. Sammy, final reflections on that. Do you have any of the collections? what do you think of this approach to the airdrop by going across 3 chains?
I think it's a really good way of selecting different communities, but I don't think it's actually that much. Like 3 million total tokens split across
3% of the total supply, though.
Yeah, but even so, like say that's 4,000 people that could potentially be eligible. Each of those collections holds probably a number of people, so I'd be surprised if like it's not gone already. So I think that registration process is going to fill up pretty quickly.
Interesting. Good point. Okay, well, better end the show and go and register, because I have one of the eligible things. So we better end it there. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Legendary, thank you for co-hosting as always. Thank you, Sammy, for all of your thoughts, jumping in the spot on YouTube and on X. And thank you to all our other speakers, Jack, Funky, and everyone else who joined us up top. Apologies if we didn't get around to you today, but we will be back again tomorrow to continue the discussion. Have a wonderful day. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.